Johnny, get your gun, get your gun, get your gun. Take it on the run, on the run, on the run. Hear them calling you.
Welcome back to Frontline Rejects. Before we get started today, we'd appreciate it if you could help us out by hitting that like and subscribe button and by dropping a comment in the comment section below. And if you'd like to reach out to us directly, send us an email at frontlinerejects@gmail.com. The bullet we're testing today is Barnes 80 grain TTSX, which we've got loaded up in 6mm arc to just over 2,800 feet per second. Now, of course, this is a monolithic or all copper projectile, and it's the second time we featured it here on the channel. We will be testing it in at least 3 more chamberings as part of our 5 cartridge review on it, and we're very excited to see how it performs. And we hope that you are as well, so let's get started. I was looking through our catalog of expansion videos recently and realized that this is only the second time we've featured Barnes' TTSX, which is a travesty, of course, because the TTSX is, in our opinion, the champagne of monolithic projectiles. As a side, impact velocities today were calculated using JDM ballistics software. And as we get into the 100, we have pretty much textbook expansion, and I want to apologize real quick for the grainy image. We recently had some camera troubles. The 200 provides a slight but noticeable decrease in expansion, as the petals do not peel back quite as far as the 100. 300, however, isn't too different from the 2, decent expansion with fairly even peeling of the copper on all sides. At 400, we managed to sharpen the edges on the image up a bit, and we can see that the round is opening up, but expansion isn't over the top. The 500 continues this trend, with the petals managing to peel back just a bit wider than parallel with the shank. As we get into our graphs, we have expansion spiking at the 100-yard mark, giving us just a hair under 2 times original width, which for an all-copper bullet is pretty good. Past that, expansion was extremely consistent at the 2, 3, and 400, and from 2 to 5, the figures stayed within 1 standard deviation of the mean, which was 1.77. Weight retention was exemplary, with the bullet losing somewhere in between 1/10 and 6/10 of a grain depending on the range. Now, my own personal subjective expansion requirement for a bullet to be effective at a given range in my book is 1.5 times original size. I think this is necessary to decelerate the projectile and properly transfer energy to the target. Much less than 1.5, and bullets don't do much better than a regular old FMJ. The difference between, say, 1.2 and 1.8 is something we see shown extremely clearly when shooting water jugs. Gallon jugs hit with bullets which minimally expand look like they've had a hole poked in them, and those hit with rounds which expand to at least roughly 1.5 times original size react drastically different. The Barnes TTSX did not deliver the kind of awesome results we get used to seeing when running bonded core bullets here at Frontline Rejects, but it really doesn't need to. Even at 500 yards when it was traveling less than 1700 feet per second, it still developed more than 1.6 times expansion, which is sufficient for me personally. Now, I run the Barnes TTSX as my go-to hunting bullet, and I have a slightly different method I employ to get this round to really work for me. Instead of going for behind-the-shoulder double lung shots, my point of aim is a bit further forward. My goal is to hit and destroy the shoulder blade and the joint, which effectively immobilizes most deer. This generally drops game where they're standing, or if it doesn't, they don't move far. I end up with a bit more meat loss than I would with a behind-the-shoulder shot, but I accept that, as in return my tracking jobs end up being pretty simple. This is a key factor to consider when considering the environment you hunt in. Up here in the Pacific Northwest, with how dense and wet it is, blood trails from blacktail can get obscured or washed away, and I would rather lose a bit more meat than the entire animal. Having a bit less expansion and less energy transfer than I could get with a bonded core bullet becomes less of a concern when utilizing this strategy. What really impressed me about this bullet today is how consistent the expansion was in between 2 and 500 yards, and this helps to remind me why I love the TTSX so much. I think it's a bullet that exceeds when employed properly, and on that subject, I think it's important to mention practical range. This bullet gave us acceptable expansion out to 500, but in this grain weight and diameter, I personally will be capping my shots at 400. With the type of shot I take with this kind of bullet, energy transfer isn't the most important thing, but past 400, with how light the projectile is, it starts to lose energy fast. I think it would be perfectly acceptable to run this offering out to further distances like 5 or maybe even 600 yards in something like a 243 Winchester or a 6mm Creedmoor. I'm looking forward to testing the TTSX several more times here on the channel, and if you'd like to see those tests and more, make sure you're subscribed. And if you got something out of today's content, consider liking the video and leaving a comment to help us out in the algorithm. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.